A quick demo of the import from GraphQL custom Airtable block, and what it enables you to do is basically hit any GraphQL endpoint with whatever authorization headers that you need, preview your data, and then import it into the table that's on your base. So let's go ahead and try it with this public API that's around countries. We don't need any authorization here. So if I play this query, I can get the continents, the countries, and their languages in a sort of graph format. And from there, I can say I would like to import this data. Let's go ahead and copy this query first. I can import this data, and I can also select a JSON path within it. So without this, sort of looks like a different structure, but I want an array at the very top. So here, the prompts are letting me know that I have a new continents table, a new countries table, a new languages table with these specific fields. I can go ahead and say, yes, I confirm that schema. And here I'll see the data for the different sort of tables that will be created here as new records. And so I can say, cool, I like what that looks like. Let's go ahead and import it. A success. So I'll go ahead and close this out. And what I'll see here is this data was imported into the table. So that's pretty awesome, and I can even now go back and link these any which way I want, or use Airtable as per normal. So one thing that's interesting here is we can also talk to GraphQL endpoints behind authorization. So you can fetch private data for your organization if they're having their data behind GraphQL. So one of the data sets that I'm familiar with is for the game called Fishbowl, where you have different players participating in rounds of taboo and different other sort of activities. And so from here, I can hit this endpoint. I'll need a token here that I'll just paste in for now, but you can generate different authorization sort of headers for your different APIs. And I'll go ahead and use a query that I've used in the past, and that's like the power here of graphical interface, which is an open source tool for exploring graph APIs with full documentation of the API built in. And I can see here I pulled the first 10 games from I pulled 10 games offset by 1500, and I can sort of pull a bunch of data about the game. Say it's join code, the players, the cards, the rounds, the turns. And in this case, I've actually already imported some of that data into this table. As you can see here, we have some 10 games with the players and their usernames, words that they've used in the game. So what I'll do is I'll grab the next 10 and I'll import those into the table, and they will just import fine as well. So you'll also notice here that this time it says this table exists, players, cards, rounds, turns, so I don't need to create anything new. One thing that will be useful, or that's already useful in this, is that if there's a schema conflict, it'll let you know here and say, hey, you need to go update the table back in the base, and then come back to import this so that the schemas match when they import the data. So go ahead and confirm that schema. Cool, what I see here are sort of the games, players, cards, rounds, and turns, and it is importing a bit of data. So we've batched it using the Airtable API. Success, so I can go ahead and see that now there's 10 new games with some more data. So overall, basically you can import any sort of data that you have or data set behind a GraphQL API, and as long as it's coming back in a JSON structure, which as it should, you can get it into your Airtable base. One thing I'll point out here also is that you have a queries table that's sort of auto-generated for you that just lets you know the different APIs that you've hit and sort of the different queries, and so that way someone can come back and see how this data in this tables were generated, because most of this most of the state in this block is not synced to the global config except for this main URL, mostly because there's secrets here that folks might put into the headers, and so we sync that to local storage, and even these sort of form fields here are synced to local storage, so that it's easier when you go back and forth or import, from GraphQL multiple times, that you can save those values. So that's it. I think it empowers folks that have access to a GraphQL endpoint to bring their data into Airtable, and sort of a better data set can lead to better sort of exploration, analysis, sharing the data. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how it gets used.